Good morning.
Welcome to our presentation. I'm Kata.
I'm Andrea.
I'm Zoba.
So this is just about FTC, and so we're going to be talking about working as a team after kickoff, robot basics and common systems, software, judging a portfolio, awards, competitions, and driving a robot. So first we have working as a team. So gracious professionalism and cooperation. So what are they? So basically it's showing kindness and respect to other teams before, during, and after competition. It's based on the idea that teams can help each other even when competing. What does it look like? Gracious professionalism and cooperation look like learning from and teaching your teammates. Competition is defined as competing always, but assisting and enabling others when you can. And so pretty much it just means being kind to everyone all the time. So setting realistic goals. So why is it important? So if you set unrealistic goals, then you won't be able to build a robot based off of it. It'll be really stressful. So just aim for something that's achievable, and then when you accomplish it, it'll feel great. So how do you create them? Brainstorm as a team, put everyone's ideas on board, take out ideas that you really can't do. Pick an option that's realistic. Something can be challenging and still realistic. It's great to challenge yourself as long as you can actually do it. So this also applies to other goals such as like winning awards and how much outreach you do. Kickoff. So first slide, engineering design process. So what is it and why is it important? It is a list of steps for building a robot. It can serve as a guide when you get stuck. It reminds you not to skip crucial steps in robot design. And it can help you understand that making mistakes will happen, and it's how you will learn and improve. So how does it relate to kickoff? The engineering design process starts today. This section will bring you through the steps of the engineering design process that occur during and right after kickoff. So the steps of the engineering design process is identify the problem, brainstorm, plan, prototype, test, improve, and then you improve by identifying a problem, coming up with a solution, and until you find something that works. Okay, so the first step is identifying the problem. So we can do this is game manuals and Q&A forms. So the game manuals are these like really long books, like PDFs online about all the rules. So game manual 1. It stays mostly the same every year, and it's just the basic rules for every FTC team, event, and robot. Game manual 2 changes yearly with a new game, and it's just like those specific rules. So it's really important to read them because even though they're really long, if you don't read them, then you could accidentally break rules, and it helps you to understand what the game is and clarify any questions you have. The Q&A forums are forums where people can ask questions and get them answered. So they can clarify, and they come out a little bit after the game manual 2, which I'm up today because that's when we want to what the specific game is. So they clarify unclear parts in the game manuals. They are the only other official source of rules, and it's important to keep checking it, so like weekly or whatever, so you can keep up with it because it never stops getting updated, and sometimes it can be important to your robot design and can apply to that. Oh, and sorry, I forgot to mention, but you can find it. We have a QR code, and if you go there, I think there's a link to the game manuals. So, what?
I forgot to actually.
Well, you can Google it if you're not there.
FTC game manual.
You can find both.
Or if you go to versusfighters.org, navigate to game and season information for percent challenge.
Yeah. Okay. So brainstorming. This is the second step of the engineering design process. When brainstorming, it's important to remember that all your ideas don't have to be good. You can narrow them down later, but in the beginning, it doesn't really matter. Listen to everyone's ideas and focus on one part of the robot at a time. So like the intake, the drivetrain, the launcher, which we'll learn more about later. Strategy and planning. So this will be the planning step of the engineering design process. So considering strategy when making your robot is important so that you can design an effective robot. A good way to start is to list all the ways that you can get points in the game. Then you can decide which methods you want to focus on. So a really great thing to do when doing strategy and stuff is making these charts. So for example, this is a point chart with points. Then we have the benefit and cost chart. So like on one side, you move it based on how much benefit it is, and the other side cost, and then that can help you to decide if it's important, because if it has a high benefit, and then you might want to do it unless like the cost is really, really high. So like then you can decide if it's actually worth it, because some things can be really challenging, especially if it's your first year. Some important things to consider is prioritizing your ideas, because you're not necessarily going to build everything that you would like to, make your robot do everything you'd want it to. It's really hard. So if you prioritize the things that are most important, then you can get to the ones that are most important, and maybe you can get all of them done. Yeah, that'd be great. Another thing is take photos of these charts. You can put them in your portfolio, which we'll go more into later, and they're really great for like winning awards and stuff. They're really important. So when picking an idea from like your brainstorming and stuff, consider if it's realistic. Does it do what you want to do? You can use the charts. You can prototype a few ideas and then like help you choose the best one. And can all of these different subsystems, so like the chassis, like all the different things in your robot, the intake, whatever, do they work together? Like, how are you going to get whatever item you're picking up or something to the launch show? You have to think about all these things. And how reliable will it be? Oh, I forgot to talk about the design matrix. Sorry. So the design matrix is like you have your different options, and then the different like things that you would like it to be able to do. So like maneuverability, simplicity, and stability are things that are important for your drivetrain. So there are two different ones, and then you can kind of like highlight which one is better, is what I did, or just like rank it or whatever you want. So now we have the robot. Okay.
Great. Great. Well, welcome to the robot section. This is where we're going to talk about all of the technical software, planning and designing your robots, all of that jazz. So we're going to start off with the parts and equipment of the robots. So this is the control system that is currently in improvement. You can use phones, but they will be not legal next year. So you can use phones for the control system, but they are going out of, like, they're not going to be legal to use in competition as of next year.
Why? I have no idea.
Not my room.
That was a decision that first made, that this is allowed. So,
But this is the control hub. This is the mind of the robot. This is the hub of everything. This is where everything must be plugged in and out of. So you also are allowed one battery supply, and that goes straight to the control hub. The expansion hub is the same thing as control hub, except it doesn't have all the extra components that connect to the driver station. And the driver station is the thing you have. It registers inputs. It lets you interface with this, the control hub. The control hub will hold all of your code. It will be what's running all of your code. So the driver hub is just connecting to this and letting you push buttons to tell it what to do. And the controller just connects to this, and all of that information goes right to the control hub. So the control hub goes to the expansion hub, and that will let you plug in more things into both of them. And then motors, servos, anything, robot components will just plug into these two.
Question. The expansion hub, what would you generally use it?
So on a normal control hub, let's say you have 4 motor ports. When you add the expansion hub, plugging it into the control hub, you will get 8. Yes. So it basically doubles how many components you can plug into your robots. That's the general idea of it. So robot devices. There are 3 main types of robot devices: motors, servos, and sensors. So motors are what you're usually going to be using to drive forwards or backwards, or move a really heavy thing, or something like that with a really fast, continuous rotational movement. So there are 2 types of servos motors we use. These go build yellow jackets, which have things holding motors in them, so they'll know how far they've turned. And these rev ultraplanetary gearbox motors. This part right here will let you can customize it and take it apart and switch around the gearing on the motor to make it the correct gearing for what you need, so that everything works out and you don't need a big funky gearbox that you build yourself.
To do like faster install.
Yes.
those are not the only motors you're allowed to use, though.
No, there
Those
are
are just the ones these guys are.
Yes. Check Game Manual 1 for what's legal and what's not. There are also servos. Servos are little tiny devices that can either have precise movement or can have like good, precise rotational movement based on how you set them up and what kind they are. But in general, they're small and they're used for precise, not high torque things that you need to do. So if you need like a little thing to flip a cone or something up to a different system, then these are great for that. They do break easily if they are hit from like the side or the top or something like that. So this right here is a servo brace, or also known as a servo saver. And so this little thing will just come down and it will get the rotational movement from the servo, but it won't let things come and hit it and smack it and break the servo, because these things get expensive quickly and you have to replace them. We also have sensors. There are so many types of sensors, but the ones I have on the slide that are pretty much a need are cameras. If you're planning on doing camera vision, every year there's some kind of element that requires a camera and something you're doing with it. So like reading data off of a target or something. This is also what an encoder looks like. Remember, these are inside motors, most of them at least. And so they're really good for knowing how much something is turned. There's also like buttons that you can use, or distance sensors or color sensors. There's so much you can use. So, experiment with it and have fun.
The motor on the bottom is how they have some numbers.
Those are the gearboxes.
Yes, those are what the gearboxes do.
Oh, okay.
Yes, these are the numbers on the gears.
Yes.
And how strong it is.
I would ask, could we save questions for the end of each of these like white title sections? Because we are under a time crunch and there is a lot to cover. Thank you. That's all good. Yeah, so we're gonna basic robot mechanisms. Okay, here we go. So we have drivetrains. So there are two general types of drivetrains you will see a lot: tank drives and holonomic drives. And a mechanism drive is a form of a holonomic drive, but there's other ways you can do it. That's just my preferred method. So tank drives are able to move forwards, backwards, and they're able to turn. And they have pretty good traction. They're pretty easy to code, but they don't have as much movement as a holonomic drive. Now, what makes this kind of drive special is that it can drive sideways and forwards and turn all at the same time. So it's very good at making sure everything, like it gives you really sophisticated movement and full control over how you move. However, it does have a hard time on slopes and it will slip around. So it's not going to have as much traction as the tank drive. Okay, intakes. So for those of you who don't know what an intake is, it basically is a little system. So if this is a cone or something that we need to grab, it's the system on the robot that grabs it. And the intake can do with it what it wishes, but it's the system that obtains it, that grabs onto it and then you grab it. So there are two types of intakes: passive intakes and active intakes. A passive intake is one that you need a precise movement for, so that you latch on at a certain time, and requires more driver practice to get down really good. An active intake is a type of intake that's constantly in. So if I do this, I suddenly have the ball. And so that's more of what an active intake is. So you could use little brushes or wheels for it. Brushes are a little bit more sporadic and are a little bit more unsteady in how they move. And wheel intakes are more smooth motion, good for symmetrical objects. Also, these are like passive intakes. They're good for really just one at a time, while these ones can grab more than one at a time. So they're very useful. And you can imagine them in many different ways. Sky's the limit. There's also depositors and transfer mechanisms. So depositors and transfers are a very crucial part of what an FTC robot is. What you'll normally see is they'll grab it and they'll move it somewhere, either if it's on the field or if it's like moving it to the back of the robot instead of the front, or if it's lifting it up, or so you'll normally see that it will grab something and then it will move it. This right here is a linear slide. And well, I can't get into the nitty-gritties of it, but what it basically is it extends and retracts based on the rotation of a motor using strings and pulleys and belts. So then you can have a depositor. So let's say the stuff comes in here, is moved up and into here, and then they're spit out where they need to go. It's very important to make sure that you are easily to quickly able to grab the things you need to get and then move the things you need to get. That beep. I have a feeling that's not what I thought it was. So that's our launchers. So we have catapults and flywheels. There are so many other different types of launchers, but generally what a launcher is it's product get ready to catch. So a catapult is a system that you can go here and then you spring back and release, and it will let it fly. It uses wheels to pull it through really fast, so it moves. Let's not show this into a game of catch. So, yeah. So this right here is from Ultimate Goal, and so these are little frisbees. So they go into the robot and they come up here, and these right here are the little flywheel shooters, and so it pushes the little discs through them, and then they'll fly, and they'll either have a frisbee motion, and you can toy around with them. Any of these designs, super cool, super awesome. Sky's the limit. So you can also, okay, right. So now we're going to go on to building the robot. Yes. So now we're going to hop back on the engineering design process with the plan. So the first step after you come up with an idea is you need to explain it to your team. Everybody needs to be on board. If it's just one person stepping up and like, oh, I'm going to build the entire robot by myself, that's not a team. And teamwork makes the dream work. So I recommend you draw it out, your ideas out, so that your team can understand what you're trying to communicate and can have the easiest time understanding. And it will help communication issues from not happening. So when you're first explaining your idea, you should use simple shapes. Like this right here is a linear slide, and it'll extend, and then it's a little grabber. It'll grab whatever this thing is, and it'll grab it, and then it'll come back in. If that's your idea, then that could be a way you sketch it. And when your team's like, yeah, that's a great idea, let's try to design it and build it. So you're like, okay, well, how would this actually go together? So you want to put in measurements, linkages, like how would this go together? That's really important. And also remember to save and take pictures of all of your drawings for your engineering portfolio. We'll talk about that later. So another way to design your robot is with computer-aided design, CAD for short. So CAD is designing your robot in 3D to have a solid understanding of how it will go together, how it fits. It's not the easiest thing to learn, and it takes a little bit of time, but it's really helpful. So this is a CAD drawing of a team's robot from Ultimate Goal. CAD is really important if you want to be able to 3D print any parts, or if you have a fab shop or a friend who has like some kind of, CNC mill or something, you're going to need to tell him how you're actually supposed to design it. And so CAD is where you can get him that sign and know where and how to build it. So it's also extremely important if your team is looking to win awards like the Design, Think, or Inspire Award. To win these awards, you need a lot of CAD in your engineering portfolio. Again, talk about that later. So there are many different programs you can use to design things in CAD. We recommend Onshape or SolidWorks. These are free for first teams. They're usually paid, but you can get them for free if you're a first team, which I think we all are. So that's very important. They're hard to learn, but they pay off in the end. Yes.
I was going to say Onshape or something.
Yes, Onshape does work on Chromebooks. It's an online thing, so it's great.
Can I add really quickly too,
Yes.
that there's another team that has put together an entire library of all of the GoBuilda, Rev, Tetrix parts.
Oh, yes.
And so you don't have to draw kit parts in CAD, they already exist. So email us if you want to know how to get access to that library. And we will send you the information on how to get that.
Yes. And our email and
Saving
information
hours.
is through this QR code that are all relevant. So, prototyping. So we're on test and prototype. this section of the engineering design process. Now, prototyping is when you build a very simple version of your idea to demonstrate if whether or not it works practically, what are going to be its challenges, how is it going to work. So we like to use cardboard, Legos, and basic robot parts when you're trying to prototype stuff. It's a very important part of the engineering design process, and it's really good when judges can see our prototypes. So for example, this is our intake from last year. We first built it out of Legos, and then we built it out of some really basic robot parts, and we just moved it by hand. And over here is us making a different prototype of another different idea for an intake. It's really good to make multiple different prototypes of different things at the same time. If you're kind of stuck on just a ton of really great ideas, but you want to know which one is going to be the best for your robot. So it's really important to test them when you have all your prototypes. So you kind of want to go through one of those design matrix graphs that Connor was talking about earlier. You want to see, here's all of our prototypes. Here's what we want them to do. And you want to score them, like, how good is it 1 out of 5 at doing this? So that's really good. I think that's all I need to talk about here. Yeah. And you're going to get to iterating and communicating. So after you do your tests, you want to make sure all of your team understands what's going on, and so everybody can choose and just be a part of the decision of what you do to move forward. You can figure out what the flaws with your prototypes were, how they worked or didn't work, just how you get them to generally work is going to depend on whether or not your team can talk about what went wrong and what you can do better. And remember, if it works, doesn't mean it can't not be better. You can always make it quicker, but you also need to know where to draw that line between it's good enough, competition ready, and over-engineered. That's the thing. I'm going to take a quick deep dive into a very tip of the iceberg dive into software. There are many different ways you can use to program your robot. That would be block code, on-bot Java, or Android Studio. There's other methods too, but these are the ones that we would recommend you use. So block code is really good for rookie teams with not a lot of experience about coding or software, and their software mentor doesn't really have a very good understanding of how this control system and its code work, not just coding, but this particular first control system. It's also pretty easy to set up. It's put inside all of the control hubs and all of the phone apps. So you can just connect your laptop to their Wi-Fi network, and you should be able to open up in the web browser, either block code or on-bot Java. And speaking of on-bot Java, it's really great for new teams with a few team members that have a pretty good understanding of how coding works. And it's scripting code. It's in the same thing as block code, so you can use that also in the web browser. It's good for normal programming of a simple Tele-Op or a slightly advanced autonomous. And then we have Android Studio. Android Studio is probably one of the more complex methods you can use to program your robot. It's great for teams who want complete control over their robot and want to make it do really fantastic, complex things. But it requires a ton of setup, a ton of bug fixing, and you need to have a software mentor who understands what they're doing with it. So it's really important to know what you're doing with it, but it offers complete control. It's really great. This is what all of the really good teams use, probably. So this right here is block code. And so the main thing you need to know about Tele-Ops, this is our word for driver control period, which is the 2 minutes where the drivers have the controller in their hands. This is the code that will allow you to drive your robot. And the important thing about this is that all of your main code will be in a while loop. And this means that it's just repeating over and over and over again until you stop it. So this is what that kind of looks like in block code. If I go to the next slide, this is kind of what it will look like in Java. I wrote this out very simply. But as you can see, there is a while loop, and this will repeat over and over and over again until you hit stop. You also want to make sure you initialize all your stuff up here. There will be an introduction to programming stuff later, maybe even in the same room, I think. So I won't get too deep into it. But move on to autonomous. So autonomous is the first 30 seconds of every match. It's really important for the competition, for winning, like performing really well in competition rankings. So for those of you who don't know, autonomous is tiebreaker points. So the amount of points you score in the autonomous period are your tiebreaker points. So also, some points during autonomous are scored double than what they actually say are, depending on the game and the rules. But last year, that did actually was something that happened. So like if we scored a cone on a pole, it wouldn't count for just 5 points, it would count for 10 points. But it's really important to at least make an autonomous, because if you have an autonomous, then it will really help you out. When we went to our first scrimmage, we were the only ones who had an autonomous, and our thing just kind of moved over, put a little cone on the least scoring thing, and then go for a parked in a very, also not very high scoring thing. So even if you do that, guess what? We won that because of that little autonomous. There were more complicated robots, but we won it because it was nice. But it's also really important to make these things reliable. There's also an award attached to these, but I won't really talk about that here. So it's really important to make your autos reliable. So if you're a rookie team, I recommend using the encoders and the motors to know where you're going, and also something called the inertial measurement unit, or IMU, that is in the control hub, and it will basically just be able to tell you how much you're accelerating, how much you're turning, etc. It's really important to make those reliable. There are so many robot resources. Game Manual 0 has a bunch of really good explanations of robot systems. There are so many robot reveals or YouTube tutorials made by Cryptic Challenge teams. There is a subreddit for FTC where you can ask questions and just nerd out about it. There is something called Stack Overflow, which is really great if you have just generalized programming questions. So like, how do I program this thing? Or how is this Java thing? How is the syntax broken? This right here is a pretty good resource for software, but there's also some control system and hardware stuff in it, I'm told. And there's also the FTC docs, which will document a lot of the control system and their functions.
We have this, and if you scan it, there's a lot of resources. Kind of by the door, so we can pick one per team, and then and everyone see the resources.
Yes. But we're going to go on to the awards.
Okay. And now we're going to be talking about judging and awards. Okay, what is it? Judging is mandatory for all FTC teams. And so normally for judging, like you go into a room and 3 different judges will be there. So you get a presentation for 5 minutes, which you share anything that you want. You can share stuff about your robot, your software, how far your team has come, the journey of your team, and then the next 10 minutes is for the judges to ask you questions about anything that they want, outreach, anything. Okay, so this is important. The control, if you want to win the control award, you have to submit the form. You have to have a portfolio. If you want any awards, then you have to turn that in, and it's mandatory. And then the engineering notebook isn't mandatory, but we'll talk about that later. Why is it important? It gives your team a chance to show off and impress all of the other judges. It's how you can win any awards, and sometimes it can help you qualify for states or even worlds. Like, if your robot wasn't that great, but you had a great judging interview, then it can help you qualify for states or worlds. And judges give feedback that can help you improve for your next competition. So they could just be like, make this better about your robot, or increase this from your portfolio and stuff like that. Okay, now we're going to be talking about it in the judging room. Read the award criteria in Judges Manual. It's very important. So if you just look up Judges Manual in first draft site, it comes up. And what you should do.
It's also in Game Manual 1.
Yeah. And it's like what the judges read to judge you. So you read it and you know what to do. Yeah. Okay. What should you include in your presentation? Highlights of your outreach, impressive parts about your robot, how much your team has improved, team building activities, software key features, types of systems you use, and what you learned. And remember, you don't have to do this. You just have to do what you want to do. So, because adding all of this can be kind of stressful, but you don't have to do everything.
It just depends on what awards you're trying to get. So if you're trying to get like
control award and stuff about Tele-Op and everyone missing stuff like that. Yeah. Okay, so these are some ways to behave in the judging room that might impress your judges.
During the presentation, look at the person who's speaking. Don't just like look all over the room and then when the person, yeah, like David's doing.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's outreach too.
And when the judges talk to you, look at them and look on the ground or somewhere else. And stand still in one place. You can't just like go dancing around the room and don't let one person do all the talking. That just makes the judges think that you're not a very good team. And then I think you better do it behind your backs. And no one, it doesn't distract anyone. And then have your team and answering questions because that's important. If one person does all the answering questions, then you might not win an award or get a very good score from the judges. Then make sure your presentation doesn't go longer than 5 minutes because some judges will take off points and not tell you that you went longer than 5 minutes. So time it a lot. Okay, now we're going to be talking about your portfolio and notebook. So the portfolio is information about your team, your outreach, lots of pictures of your team, your strategy. And if you want control, what you think like stuff about Tele-Op, autonomous, sensors, all of that. Your engineering design process, and this is important. Your portfolio can't exceed 15 pages, and that's not including the cover page. If you want to include a table of contents, you can, but I think you should. Like I suggest that you should do it. And then this is a notebook. The notebook isn't mandatory, and it's more stuff about math and physics and how you figure out the encoder values and all of that. And this is things about what you did at each meeting, and it goes into more detail about everything from the portfolio and your notebook stays in your pitch. So if the judges want more information, they can come and take a look at it.
So if you have a topic that you really have a lot of nitty-gritty details about, but you can't fit it in those 15 pages, then you want to reference it in your notebook. The notebook is not mandatory, but if you have it at your pit and you have a lot of really complex details you can't fit in those 15 pages, then it's very helpful if you want to win some of the more guest ones.
Don't give it to the judges. Like,
No, they will look at you and be like, you can't do this.
I mean, yeah, your portfolio is like the first thing you hand into the judges when you walk in.
Yeah.
But you just, outreach. What is it? Outreach is volunteering. It helps a lot of other people know about what first step challenges and what you're doing and just general awareness. And why is it important? Well, it's important because it can help you win different types of awards and it helps other people like, know about you. Okay. So there are two different types of outreach. One is community. That means like sharing steam with your community and not anyone else. And it means serving your community and sharing steam with non-steam communities. So some examples of that are like volunteering in the library, at the farmers market, anywhere else that you can think of. The other one is STEAM outreach. This means like you're sharing STEAM with different support organizations and you're teaching other people about STEAM and robotics. Okay, so some examples of that are like are teaching the first Lego kids about this, or other younger kids, or quacks, or just other robot organizations about first step challenge.
For what we're doing right now.
Yes.
Totally not the reason.
Okay. Now we're going to be talking about awards. Yeah. Okay. So these are all of the different awards. The first one is the judging award. The judging award isn't given at all the competitions, but if the judges feel like your team did something amazing, but you don't fit into any of the other categories, then you get it. The next one is the Compass Award. The Compass Award is only given at states, and you have to turn in a video talking about like a coach or mentor that brought your team success, and then you can win it. The next one is the Promote Award. The Promote Award is also only given at states, and the team might talk about about the team that was released this each year, and that's also a video. And the next one is the Design Award. This award is given to the team that has the most functional and creative idea to the challenge, which we're going to get today. The next one is the Motivate Award. The Motivate Award is for community outreach. So if you have like a lot of community outreach, then you can maybe win this award. The next one is the Control Award. This one is for software. So they use sensors and all of that to increase the robot functionality on the field. This is important because you have to turn in the Control Award form for this. The next one is the Innovate Award. This award is given to the team that brings great ideas into a reality. And then the next one is the Connect Award. This award is given to the team that does a lot of STEAM outreach, so you spark a lot of other people curiosity about the work. The next one is the Think Award. And the Think Award is given to the team that removes engineering obstacles through creative thinking. And the last one is the Inspire Award. This is the highest award that the team can win, and this team has to put into all of the other categories for awards. And this goes by ranking, so the design award and the motivator. So the inspire award is the highest, and then the think award. So, yeah.
And the judges compass and promote award are like a different.
Yeah.
Right. They don't have to do with like advancing to state and world and such.
No.
Compass and Promote can only be one at state, and the Judges Award is just a general one, but it's pretty down on the advancement list. Just a little bit of the next slide.
Okay, so this is the order of advancement. So first it's the Inspire Award winner, winning Alliance captain. Inspire Award second place. So at each qualifier, a few teams advance to state, and then from states they advance to world. So it's like the the Inspire Award winner or the qualified, and you just keep moving down the list on who qualifies. And you can find this in game number 1, page 26. So look that up. It's very important. Okay, now we're going to be talking about competitions. Okay, so there are 4 different types of competitions. The first one is the scrimmage. That happens during like the end of October and about November. And remember, your team doesn't have to go to this. It's just like practice for your drivers on the field. It's actually very helpful. That's where we learned a lot about the mistakes and encoders and how to reprogram that. The next one is the qualifier. So each team attends 2 qualifiers and from January to February, but this year it changes from December to February. Then the next one is states. So if you qualify in one of the qualifiers, then you made it to states, which is amazing. So that's all the teams from Colorado competing against each other. And if you qualify in that, you get to go to Worlds, which is amazing. Woohoo! And then, yeah, and Worlds is like teams from all over the world. So from like China, Europe, anywhere. Okay, drive team rules and practice. There are 4 roles on the drive team. One is the movement driver. So they focus more on like the movement of the robot and just normally around the field. The next one is the operations driver. They work on like the lift and the intake and all of that. And then the next one is the drive coach. The drive coach's job is very important. They sit behind the people, they stand behind the drivers and tell them what to do and what places to go and how to score points. They also keep track of time, which is important because sometimes you could just be like, so, because the drivers are so focused on driving the robot, they may not pay attention to the time and they go down out of time or do something bad. The next one is the human player. This changes yearly, but the human player like drops the human elements into the game. And not every game has a human player, but for the past few years, they've had a human player, so you're probably going to have a human player. Okay, practice. Start practicing with your drive team right away because that's very important. Your drivers need to be able to communicate really well with each other and they need to be able to know what they're doing and all of that. And for a coach, it's very important to know how to kind of like, communicate to the drivers, and the drivers also need to listen. Yeah. Okay, preparing for a competition. So this is like a list of what you need to do to prepare for a competition. So you have driver practice, review all the rules for a competition, make sure you're not breaking any rules. Do the pre-inspection checklist, pack tools and spare parts, break team spirit and spirit gear. That's good. Stickers and buttons to swap with other teams if you want to. Practice judging presentation and questions. That's important since practice is good. Pack portfolio, print judging feedback form and control award form. And submit videos a week ahead of time and review your driving and game strategy. Okay, so this is a typical learning schedule. So first you check in and then you do judging and robot inspection. Your robot inspection is very important. We're going to talk about that later. The next is a driver's meeting, which all the drivers go to and it's just like a review of all the rules. Next you have opening ceremonies. This is basically where everyone comes and it's just like an introduction to it. And then you have qualifier matches. And you have the first half of that. Then you have lunch, which is a pretty fun part of the day and it's also important. The next one is more qualifying matches and the judging. So judges can come to your pits to ask you questions. And the next one is alliance matches. So the first 4 teams select 2 other teams that they compete with and then they go head to head to name the champion on the field. And then the next then you have closing ceremony and awards. And finally you get to go home.
The pits. So these are like the tables where you have all your robot stuff, and you can like fix your robot, and where other teams and judges will come to talk to you. So it's really important people are always there because judges come to ask you questions so you can win awards and stuff. And if other teams come, then they might be like seeing if, like asking questions about your robot to decide if they want to have you in alliance at the end of the game. So make sure you're there, or someone is. So what should you bring? You should bring your robot parts in case something breaks, safety glasses, because you can't compete. You don't have safety glasses. You cannot go to the pits, so you need safety glasses. Do not forget them. Battery chargers, a power strip, key buttons or handouts, and snacks and water bottles. Snacks is very important because it's a long day and you will get hungry. Robot inspection. Make your robot legal. Check the inspection checklist. It's very important. So why do you need to do this? If your robot isn't legal, you can't compete. So just like take a few minutes, read through it, make sure your robot fits all the requirements. You have to have like all these stickers and stuff. It's really like doesn't take that much time, but if you don't do it, it's a big problem. So how do you do this? You search the FTC robot inspection checklist to ensure that you're okay, and check Game Manual 1 for traditional events, page 45 and 29. Find this, and then you just like you go through it all and see if it works and if your robot is legal. Fix any problems. Okay. Before, during, and after matches. Before matches, make sure you know which matches you're competing in. Like circle them on. Like give out a little piece of paper because you need to be prepared. Talk to alliance partners, like whoever you're going to be working with, because in games you have another robot you work with. Does your like autonomous conflict? Because if they do, that could be problematic. What strategy are you going to use? Who's going to be doing what? Which human player are you going to use? Assuming that there is a human player, I'm pretty sure there's only one allowed in most games. During the matches, if you're not driving your robot, cheer for it. Collect the data on the matches, which is when you like write down stuff about all the robots, scouting. We'll go more into that later. For the drivers, have fun. Don't stress out. It is just a game. I know it's kind of stressful, but it's a fine. So then after that, after you're done with your match, tighten all your screws, fix any problems that arose during the match. If you've done those things, like driver practice with other teams and ask other teams about their robot. Also, don't forget all the time, gracious professionalism and cooperation. It's very important. Scouting, what is it? Why is it important? So in alliance selection, the top 4 teams pick their teammates for the semifinals. The teams who are picking will want to know who they should pick. Scouting is where teams collect data on all the other robots and teams to create a ranked list of who would make the best alliance partners. So you do this by like watching the games, asking other teams about their robots. So the people who scout are team members who are not on the drive team. The drive team people who focus on the driving. The best way to keep track of your data is you can make a spreadsheet to like punch numbers for you, or if you don't know how to do that, then you can like write down stuff like that, like do all these things. Then what should you scout for? There are many things to look for in an alliance partner. The main things are, does their robot work with your strategy? What does their autonomous do, and is it consistent? How often does their robot fail? You don't want a broken robot. I mean, if their robot is broken, then don't pick them. And how many points do you get for the alliance? If you go to the orangealliance.org, you can find from past seasons how well teams have done.
So competition.
And
Some say that they've been too.
Oh, and our competitions. So
If you don't do any scouting, you have to pick somebody. Choose them based on their OPR or
But-
offensive ranking.
you're scouting, so you don't have to do that.
Yes,
But
that's
it's a
more
backup. If
effective.
something terrible happens, you have something to do. Okay,
Questions?
we did it. Does anyone have any questions? Oh yeah, I can go back to that. Yes.
You have to answer questions other than.
Well, you don't, but you probably should say no if they should pick you for line inspection, or else you won't get picked. So you could say no, but I would recommend saying yeah. Yeah, like this is. So.
Oh, yeah. An important thing about alliance selection is that if somebody who isn't one of the top 4 teams who gets to pick people, if they get picked and they say no, you can't be picked by anybody else.
Oh, that's
You
true.
really only say no if your robot is broken or you don't want to compete.
Yeah. So if you want, like, in the top, if you're like, oh, I don't like this team, you don't say no if they pick you for like it's good. Yeah.
Everybody's cool. Everybody's nice. Even the people who look as scary as
Yes.
We're a brand new team with an old kit from prior team. They have the expansion hub, but not the control hub. Is that gonna work?
It can't work with this season, but I would highly recommend trying to get your hands on the control hub because they will no longer be legal next year.
No, I don't think it
I'm
can.
not sure that a driver's hub can connect to.
It can.
It can,
Okay.
okay.
You'll need a cell phone.
Well,
Yes,
no,
they
driver-
competed with
the
this.
driver can get to
These
the
are the
connection.
driver hub.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So, any other questions?
Yes.
If you program
The driver hub app also works on cell phones.
Okay.
So,
if you program in blocks, can you switch it to Java to make?
yes,
Yes,
it actually
you can.
converts all the block code to Java before sending it to the robot. And so you can just tell it to share that stream of Java with you, and then you can look at it and study it in here.
And it's also useful because if you like use block code but you want to use Java next year, then you can learn from it and it's very helpful.
Right. Nice. I love students that haven't had any code.
Yeah, that would be a good place to start.
There's more than one qualifier. How do you know which one to go to, or do you go to one?
So well, you go to do each year, each season, and you can choose which ones you want. So the qualifiers normally come out. Where did they come out?
Well, they already come out. Yeah,
Yeah,
basically,
They
you just pick two that are most convenient for you based on location and
said timing and
everything.
And they will also have different spots of advancement to higher levels. So one might have 3 or one might have 5, yeah. Depends on size.
You're talking about how things won't be until next year. Does that mean they'll be legal for this season in February?
Yes, it'll be legal this season, just not next
Yeah.
season.
Okay.
Next season.
Yes.
With the qualifiers, do you have to qualify twice?
No, you
No,
only
you
have to
just have to
qualify
qualify
once.
once.
Okay, so if you qualify at one.
Well,
No.
I think
No.
You can only go to 1, you don't have to go to 2. You can have the opportunity to be eligible to qualify from 2. You could go to 3, but on that third one, you won't be able to actually advance from us.
Just like for practice or whatever. It's fine.
Yes. Are your slides literally with the QR code?
yes, it is. And we also have on our website. We also have. I know on the next slide, but
When I did that, it did say, if requested access, just FYI,
With an access, okay, I will
just for your slides.
quickly change
Yeah,
the
we
drive
can just
permissions
change
on
the
that.
sharing.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was late last night when I remembered I should probably make camera. Oh yeah, there's you requesting access.
Yep, that's me.
We can just change that.
Great. Take some
Thank you.
in a minute. Sorry about that.
So if there are no other questions, yes.
If you use the block programming, and then you convert it into Java and make a notification, and you convert it to that state, so you could or you convert it to Java.
So,
I'm not sure. I'm not very incredibly familiar with that.
So Lori Birch is doing an entire workshop on block coding and on that Java after lunch. I strongly recommend you go to it. She'll be able to answer all of those questions.
I think you can. There's like 2 different tabs. I'll Google
Yeah,
it
I
and
mean, I
fix it.
used onboard Java at the beginning, and there were 2 tabs.
So I think you can convert it back, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, well, if there are any more questions,
Oh yeah.
Anybody with update? Cool.
So good luck, everyone.
good luck. And this is our email.
Yeah.
Let's go see this.